there, my name's Kristin.
Hi, I'm Niall. Nice to meet you.
So what brings you here today?
Well, currently I'm a sophomore at George Mason,
Okay.
and I came in as an undeclared major,
Okay.
but I know my junior year is now approaching in August, and I'm feeling really frustrated about choosing my major. I'm just having a really hard time committing to one. I I'm under the pressure from my parents as well because I feel like I have to choose a traditional career.
Okay.
And I also have explored psychology, and I really would love to be a psychology major, but my parents have already given me a speech about not choosing that because they said I wouldn't have any career options, which makes me frustrated because I know many people older than me that have psychology majors and have done wonderful things with their major and their career. So right now I'm just feeling really frustrated. I've talked to the career counselor several times on campus, different ones as well, just exploring my options, but hasn't really alleviated any of my anxiety or concern about my looming task I have to complete.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's definitely a big struggle right now for you going on, and I can tell that you're very frustrated. There's a lot of conflict between what your parents think and what you think.
Exactly.
So, I get the sense that you want to do something that kind of makes both parties happy. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that your parents want you to take a more traditional major. What does that mean to them? What does traditional mean to them?
Right. Like me being a lawyer, doctor, or nurse, like one of those, you would say prestigious careers, which I understand. And I think I have two older sisters, they follow that same path as well. So I think the expectation, of course, is that I would follow that as well. And I think part of my, I guess, just anxiety about my whole situation is that I have to just make this decision very quickly. And I'm also very concerned about disappointing my parents because my parents are, I really do love my parents. They have provided me everything. But, I want to be independent too, making my own choice, not doing something that's going to please them, yet disappoint me later in life, and me being, totally irritated with my job choice later.
Right. You don't want to, sounds like you don't want to resent them later on for picking what they want, but you're not being happy and worrying about that, what that could cause problems in the relationship later on. Okay. Now you said you feel like you have this time crunch. When do you have to make your decision? Do you have to submit anything to George Mason?
Right. I do have to submit to the department that I would like to be the major of. So if I do end up choosing psychology, I would go to the psychology department and say, hey, I want to change my major to psychology, and then they just have to sign off on it. But I do have to make the decision by August, so I only have like a month and a half left.
Now I know you would prefer to do psychology. That seems to be exactly what would make you happy.
Right.
Okay. Have you taken any other classes that have interested you? Is there any other career path that you think you'd be interested in, or is your heart set on psychology right now?
Well, I feel like I'd be great in the helping profession. Of course, I've taken general education courses like biology, English, math, and the part of the problem is that I'm a very high achieving student. I always have been, and I always will be. So, and the thing is that I can't, pinpoint one thing because I feel like I'm good in, all things, not trying to sound, pompous here, but,
You're confident in your skills.
Yeah,
and your
exactly.
abilities.
And I put a lot, and I feel like a lot of it is I put a lot of effort into it. I do study a lot. I, am perfectionist in some tendencies. So that I think has complicated the matter because I feel like everything's an option for me.
Yeah, so you feel like you don't really need to rule anything out because if you did pick something, you would probably excel at it because of your personality and just your drive to be good at something.
Right.
Okay. Now, how do your siblings, you said you've got two sisters. Now, what do they have to say on this? Are you close enough with them to confide in them, and do they have any input in this decision for you?
Well, my two older sisters, I feel like I have a very close relationship with them. I feel like in part they almost raised me as well. So I feel like I could go to them with any issue, but I feel like just from like our cultural standpoint that and I'm of course, like everyone has to respect their parents, but I think,
Sure.
you know, for some cultures, it takes it to a higher degree,
Mm-hmm.
and you do not want to disappoint your parents,
Right.
because, as I said before, I feel like my parents have given me everything, including, financially everything
Right.
as well. I feel like very fortunate in that
Sure.
respect. So I think in that aspect, I don't want to disappoint them and kind of choose like a lower paying career, because I feel like, as long as, I have that career and then my parents are in my life, they might resent me, or kind of say, I told you so, you weren't going to get paid that. And
Right.
so, and I feel like that might breed, kind of disappointment in myself.
Absolutely. Now you said they're financially been supportive, so does that mean they're supporting your education right now?
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Now, if you did choose a major, let's say if you did go with psychology, would that mean that they would stop supporting you?
I don't think they would stop supporting me, but
Okay.
I think it's more of like, just as a daughter, like you feel you have that duty to respect your parents, and you, as I said before, you don't want to disappoint them, and I just feel like, they have given me so much,
Sure.
so, why is it that I can't, find a compromise where I'm happy and that they're happy as well.
Right. So it sounds to me like you want it to be kind of that perfect world where everyone's
Exactly.
happy and you both get what you want,
Right.
but you're afraid that that really can't happen right now because
Right.
what you want and what they want are two different things.
Exactly.
And from a cultural standpoint, like what you've been saying, you have this almost an obligation as a daughter to live up to what they want you to do, and you're kind of following in, they want you to follow in the same footsteps as your sisters, and
Right.
you kind of have that burden as the youngest that you're supposed to live up to what they've done as well.
Exactly.
So it sounds like you're struggling as, as the daughter, as the youngest sister, and then as the student, and you want to be doing well and doing what you want to do.
Right.
What do you think is the worst thing that could happen if you did choose psychology? What do you think your parents' reaction would be if you did say, Mom, Dad, I declared my major at psychology, this is what I want to do, this is what's going to make me happy?
I feel like maybe just disappointment on their end, and
Okay.
kind of, me hearing about it
Mm-hmm.
the rest of my life, and then when I go out, beyond my undergraduate degree, will I have enough options to pursue a career? And of course, like when they think of prestigious careers, they think of course money as
Sure.
well, and that's understandable, but I also feel like money isn't everything.
Right.
Of course, I've been fortunate enough to be financially supported by them, and my parents are well off, so that's something I do greatly appreciate. But I feel like, money comes in time, and when you really need it, it's there. But I don't feel like it's everything, because I have family friends that have a lot of money, and they're not necessarily happy.
Right.
So I would like to pursue something that would make me happy. Of course, money's important, but I don't think it's, the ultimate.
Right. So it sounds more like the conflicts are kind of there with what you value over what your parents kind of put as their foremost, what they feel like as is most important, making money, being successful in that
Right.
traditional sense of doctors, lawyers.
Yeah.
But you are more wanting to make sure that you're happy and you're satisfied in what you're doing for your career.
Yes.
And maybe money takes a second kind of place
It
to
does.
being happy.
Yeah.
Which I think is, definitely a legitimate concern for you to be able to want to have that and not have to do what your parents want you to do. But it also sounds like your parents wouldn't have this horrible disown you, stop supporting you reaction if you did pick
Right.
psychology. So the worst case scenario that you just said was that they would just kind of give you this grief and continually say, oh, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough.
Right.
So is that kind of what your concern is? That
Yeah,
you're
but
gonna
I
keep
also
hearing
think
this?
it's personally, like, it may be more just me.
Okay.
I think for me, like with that duty being, a great daughter, of course, like whatever decision I make, I always keep them in mind. I always go to them for advice, because I feel like they give me great advice.
Yeah.
But I think it's more me. I feel like I would feel guilt over, not following in, mom or dad's footsteps or my sister's footsteps. Am I good enough? Can I live up to that? Those kind of issues. So I think, partly it's, the conflict, not major conflict, but minor conflict with, just the clashing views, but also trying to get to a place within myself that, I'm happy with myself, I'm happy with my decision. I kind of want to come to a point where I don't have to justify my decision. I just want the decision to be made, and then, you know, everyone kind of just accept and move on.
Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds more like you're more worried about how your reaction is going to be inside yourself when if you did declare being a psychology major as opposed to something else.
Right.
Not so much your parents' really initial reaction, because you know they're going to support you and love you and still be there for you and still be your parents no matter what, but it's more how you're going to feel.
Right.
You got anxiety, and it sounds like a bit of guilt and maybe just feeling like you're disappointing your parents.
Right.
What kind of career path would you like to take if you did do a psychology major? Are there any that would lead up to that successful prestige that your parents kind of have in mind for you? Is there something that you can get to?
I mean, I know like there's of course PhDs, but I just don't feel like, and I've talked to a professor and I asked her, I said, you know, what kind of motivated you to do a PhD in psychology? She's like, you know, the one thing I have to tell you is that if you really enjoy research, then go for it. And then research I enjoy, but it's not something I see myself doing like for a long time. I feel like I just get bored or frustrated with it and start crying. So, so I don't feel like I necessarily have to fit that mold, but of course it's always like looming in the back of my mind, like how can I be better? You know, how can I, you know, make myself happy alongside my parents?
So what kind of career do you envision for yourself then? If it's not necessarily a PhD route, what route would make you happy then for your career?
I think either teaching or school counseling. During, like, I've started to substitute teach in the county, and I love it. I've only really explored elementary school, but I think it kind of opened my eyes to just working with kids, understanding them, understanding their language. Obviously, it's very different than, you know, adult language.
Yeah, of course.
And just the way they communicate and their emotional needs. So that's something I would really like to explore. But like for teaching, I'm not sure like if I see myself doing that long term. Maybe, you know, starting off with teaching, then progressing into school counseling, because I do appreciate that like non-evaluative kind of relationship. With kids, because, you know, I think they're kind of trained just to always like, you know, am I getting this grade or am I getting this grade? And I think just being that ally for them and their parents, I think I could see myself progressing into.
Well, it sounds like you're very passionate. You found something that you're very passionate about, and you can tell the difference in your facial expression when you're talking about doing research and PhD, and you can tell that's not something that interests you really at all. And you light up when you actually talk about being, you know, with working with kids, being a teacher, being a counselor. That really seems to be what makes you happy. And have you tried to express that to your parents, that that's really the route that would make you the happiest?
I think I've, you know, of course, expressed teaching to them. School counseling is kind of a new idea to me, kind of like a new like idea that popped into my head, just being in the school environment, just seeing what they do. Because I feel like when I was in elementary school, I didn't personally like my school counselor. I just felt like she was kind of mean. So I guess sometimes those things can turn you off from a career. I have expressed teaching to them, but I also feel like just, you know, they kind of think that's like too traditional, like not prestigious though. And of course it goes back to the money thing, and you're never going to make any money, and you know, but I also feel like, you know, there are benefits of teaching. You know, of course you have the summers off, you have holidays off, and then, you know, I do envision with myself, you know, getting married, having a family. I feel like that would be not just sound stereotypical, but, you know, it could be a beneficial thing for me, you know, have summers off when I have children. I can spend time with them, I could teach them. So that's something I've expressed to them, and I've of course expressed like, you know, future goals with them as well, but it kind of just boils down to that same conversation about, you know, where is that going to lead you, you know, how are you going to make money, how are you going to support your family?
Well, I think, you know, something to think about until we meet next time. I would start trying to write things down. Write down maybe into a letter to your parents. Sometimes it's easier to have a conversation by writing things out, everything at once. So you know what your train of thought is, you know what kind of points you want to make, and that way you're not thrown off by a reaction from them, a comment from them. You really get to say, you know, tell them that I'm worried about disappointing you. I'm worried about feeling guilty that I'm not living up to your expectations. Really get those feelings out about what you're feeling, and if they're maybe not aware of that right now about all these anxious, you know, kind of turmoil inside you about this whole decision, that might open them up to really understanding how you're feeling. And then they might be able to find a common ground, because ultimately they're going to want you to be happy also.
Right. So I think maybe the letter will, I think, boost my confidence maybe in talking to them.
Okay. So you think that's something you can work on?
That sounds like a great plan.
That sounds
All right.
good.
Thank you so
You're welcome.
much.